Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started now. So first off, thanks for attending today, and welcome to the presentation and live demonstration of our Preferred Strategies BI Quick Launch for Microsoft PowerPivot with J.D. Edwards. My name is Adam Krieger. I'm the founder of the organization. I'll be walking through today's session and a couple logistics. If the GoToWebinar control panel is taking a part of your screen, there should be a little bit of a either white arrow and an orange or red box that could minimize that to the edge of your screen. Also, as far as questions, we're going to tackle those at the end. So as we're going along, feel free to post questions in the Q&A panel. And at the end of the session, we'll pull those up and address those. Also, we are recording this session. If all goes well and the recording is successful at the end, we'll be putting that back out. So there's a survey at the end of the session that will be prompting you, and if there, you can specify whether or not you want a link to the recording when it's available. So go ahead and specify that if you're interested in that. Other than that, we're going to go ahead and get started. So the agenda for today, kind of a little bit of a background about myself and preferred strategies, the kind of recap of the J.D. Edwards data model complexities, why many J.D. Edwards customers look at alternatives to get information out of the system, a couple different approaches to implementing business intelligence and reporting with JDE, and a summary of the BI Quick Launch as it relates to, which is our jumpstart package as it relates to PowerPivot. We'll get into the live demonstration and then come back and just recap what the steps are to get started and implement, and then we'll address the questions at the end. So Preferred Strategies, we started this company in 2002 to help J.D. Edwards customers get information out of the system. Started around Crystal reports, then as Crystal got acquired by Business Objects, expanded the full suite of the Business Objects as well as Crystal, and then some of the ETL elements for some options for feeding data outside of the transaction system for reporting as well. And then over the last few years, we've expanded into the areas using Oracle BI Publisher, and what we're looking at here today, Microsoft products with the front end of PowerPivot, which we're going to demonstrate today. Our sweet spot as an organization has always been being able to figure out ways to connect directly to the transactional JDE data. However, we also support alternatives if for some reasons you don't want to do that, to either a repository, a copy, a replicated data set, or even if you want to take it one step further and transform the data, we can also help you there as well and have some pre-built packaged ETL for data warehousing. We not only implement software, our jumpstarts for J.D. Edwards with the BI software, we do training, support, and consulting as well. We're partners with Oracle, Microsoft, and Business Objects. Those are the three type of mega vendors that we work with. So to recap the complexities of JDE, why is it so difficult? Well, J.D. Edwards has thousands of JDE tables. The table names are things like F0006 for the business unit master. The field names are cryptic as well. GBOBJ for the object account. Julian dates, all the dates are stored in a Julian format, which need to be converted to a legible Gregorian format for reporting. Amounts in units stored without decimals, so you have to figure out a way to address that. Just even getting in a lot of the different tables, the user-defined codes or category codes, getting the descriptions associated with those sometimes can be a bear. And even calculating things which a lot of reports and for analysis are going to need month-to-date, quarter-to-date, year-to-date, actual versus budget, or year-over-year, month-to-date or quarter-to-date quantity shipped, things like that. Those time-based measures or metrics are not out of the box part of JDE. You just have the raw data, you have to build that, and so that's kind of something that sometimes can be a little bit complex as well. And then some of the data is just stored sometimes with leading spaces or leading zeros in some fields. The data types of fields across modules don't always tie. So there's just a lot of complexities across the board to make reporting and BI a little bit more complicated. So as I mentioned before, we have three different approaches. So from a direct connect, we refer to that as kind of the real-time option. The operational data store you can actually use, and we have an OEM relationship with a company called Attunity to feed data off of JD transaction sources to a target in near real time. So that pulls from you the journals or the logs of JDE files, and then feeds data over as those tables are updated. That's what we refer to as kind of an operational data store, just kind of a mirror image of the transaction data that can be used for reporting purposes. And then the data warehouse, where you're then not just replicating the data, but then doing extra transforms, things like taking advantage of data warehouse techniques like surrogate keys and coming up with more defined and fact and dimension tables that are applicable across the different modules. So what are the benefits? Obviously the direct connect, it is real time. We look at that as kind of the least reliance on IT and the lowest total cost of ownership, just because there's a lot of extra layers with the second, with the operational data store, data warehouse that come into play. So with a direct connect solution, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that looks like from preferred strategies, but in essence you can kind of remove some of those layers and simplify the overall model. Why not go with a direct connect solution? Some people are concerned about performance. We've actually been very lucky that we're able to fine-tune our direct connect options to make the performance most of the time be a non-issue, but some companies just have a policy against going against the transaction sources, so an operational data store or data warehouse might make sense. Or if you have multiple ERPs or need to tightly integrate data across different systems, that's where the direct connect may be a little bit more complicated to handle. So if for whatever those reasons are, the next step may be feeding data again off to a non-direct approach with a copy of the data, a replicated data set, where you're actually getting data in near real time. That allows you to kind of maybe not worry about any impact whatsoever to the very little impact to the transaction system. Then the data warehouse, if you really need to tightly integrate data or create metrics from a variety of different sources that can be analyzed across the organization, then for those sakes or those specific requirements, then modeling the data into a star schema may be the best bet. We can talk about these are a lot of topics, not for today's per se, but just want to cover that at a high level. So what is PowerPivot? PowerPivot is a free plugin. The prerequisite is Office or Excel 2010. With 2010, there's actually it's a free plugin. You just go out to powerpivot.com and you can walk through the specific downloads and the requirements for that. Download it, install it with 2010, and now you have it working from Excel. With 2013, if you're already at that level, it's actually just part of the Excel build. So you don't even have to go out and download it. You just have to activate the add-ins that are already going to be there available for you. So you've got your data source, in this case, JDE. There's the PowerPivot piece that sits inside the in-memory piece within Excel, and then really just the spreadsheets. And you're going to see all this live here in just a minute. So what is our jumpstart? How do we get this started with JD Edwards? We looked at kind of separating this in a few different ways. At the very bottom is what we refer to as like the data layer. So and then we got the semantic layer and the reporting layer. The data layer is kind of what we're looking at, the data itself, where the data resides. If you're a JD Edwards customer, that's either going to be on DB2, SQL Server, or Oracle. We actually have our Jumpstart BI Quick Launch consists of part of the element is some view scripts that we provide, and we'll run through these today together, that actually do a transformation of the cryptic table names and field names and dates and decimals and all that, and relating multiple tables together, restructuring some of the data when applicable, accessing the UDC descriptions. So these view scripts run on top of that data, and it could be your transaction production data or a replicated copy of that, but they are designed to go right against the original schema or natural schema of JDE. And so that's at the data layer. We also only provide for the JDE, but you could actually use PowerPivot for non-JDE data sources as well. So it's just an agnostic tool to be used and connect to any OLEDB, ODBC compliant data source on virtually any database type as well. So the semantic layer is where we need to model and create some aggregations and calculations for the ad hoc components that we'll show you. And that actually is happening behind the scenes within the Excel PowerPivot engine. And then within just Excel, you can kind of build, PowerPivot reports. As you get more into it, there's also another flavor referred to as Power View. We're not getting into that today, but there's a few different ways you can kind of build content and then deploy it. So you can either share these spreadsheets amongst other people. As long as they have the plugin installed, they can interact with it. They can refresh the data if you give them rights to it. Or if you use SharePoint internally, you can actually publish these, and we'll actually do that together, publish an example to SharePoint and see access it over the web as well. This is our jumpstart. We'll actually show a lot of this today. So really the difference is, rather than just taking a data source, when it's JDE, we throw our views on top of it and our models, and that's kind of the piece that sits in between and can save you all the headache and time and effort and of trying this on your own from scratch. Okay, now we're ready to dive into the live demonstration. So the key things we're going to cover, as like I said, as you ask questions that pop up, we're going to tackle those at the end, but feel free to just post those in the Q&A panel of your GoToMeeting. If you've minimized it, you might have to open it to get back to that. We're going to start by just showing you in Excel a couple ways to analyze sales and financials, just a couple flavors of examples that we have for that. Then we're going to go ahead and show you, okay, if you had a pristine data set, how we run our view scripts, what those look like, and then we'll take an existing PowerPivot model and map it over that data set, refresh it, and then we'll even publish that to SharePoint, log into SharePoint, see that, then maybe show you how you could, even if you had SharePoint and then want to kind of create a new report from that, how you could have that be your repository to store a lot of these models as well. We're also going to come back at the end and show you we've built a utility to help mine the JD Edwards data set. It's typically for IT individuals, but could be useful for other power users as well. We'll kind of give you a flavor of that. And keep in mind, SharePoint is not a requirement for anything we're showing you today, but if you do have SharePoint, it is a way to distribute this via the web to your different managers and end users as well. Okay. So first thing I'm going to do is just start by, before getting the live demo, this is just, if you go to PowerPivot.com, it'll redirect you to this, and you can click on Download PowerPivot. You don't already have this installed, but again, you will need Office 2010 or 2013. 2010, you do also have some requirements here. You need to have the .NET Framework 4.0 and Visual Studio 2010 tools for Office runtime. So, and these needs to go in the specific order. Sometimes a lot of companies already have those, so you may just be able to just try and download the PowerPivot from Microsoft Excel and get started. Now, there would be either a 32-bit version or 64-bit, so you need to make sure. If you have any questions about how to find out what version you have, feel free to reach out to us. We actually put another YouTube video out there on how to kind of walk through this process, so we'd be happy to help you with that if you have any issues. So let's go ahead and switch over. I'm going to open up on another, this actually happens to be the server we have that's running a SharePoint instance. I'm going to go ahead and open up Excel. We're going to start not in SharePoint. We'll come into that in a few minutes. So the first thing I'm going to do is open up a sales order. This is one of our examples, one of our models in PowerPivot on top of sales. And so it's definitely something that we cover, and we can get into more detail about all the modules. We cover, I think, 14 different JDE modules, and we'll get into that. But we also, this is an example we do have. We can send you and have it with some click-through guides. So I want to kind of cover that in case this is of interest and you guys do run sales. We can send you this file, password protected, and you can kind of click around through it. So just reach out to us if you want access to that. So just to kind of the lay of the land here, we've set this up. We've got some what we refer to as slicers across the top, some charts, and then below the charts we have some pivot tables. And as we click around, let's say if I wanted to get 2009 data instead of 2008 data, I can just click on 2009, and then you'll see everything kind of update to be reflecting 2009 data instead of 2008. So now my charts are looking at 2009. If I want to look at just one quarter, like Q4 of 2009, I can even click on the year and quarter. And now I'm looking at just one quarter's worth of data. If I want to look at just the data for the central region, click on central. And if I hold control, I can even select multiple values here as well. So now if I want to look at, for instance, central and west, we can see that. Over here, based on my top 10 customers, it looks like Walmart is the largest. If I want to filter down to just analyzing Walmart sales, click on Walmart. and we'll see everything else. Now, as you click these separate slicers, we've also provided the descriptions for those. So you can see the description. So if you're printing this, you might want to have those, so you know what exactly you're filtered down to. There's another option. So again, just by clicking on these, we can kind of analyze the different, and these are all easily interchangeable. So if you don't want to, analyze your sales by product group or region or sales rep or channel, maybe you've got completely other different ways that you categorize. We've built this in a way so that it's very interchangeable and easy to modify these. And we'll even do a little bit of that together here today. We can also minimize these here. For instance, if I didn't want to see those and just get right down to the pivot tables, we can see the breakdown of our, sales by product group or sales by region, and then we can drill through this as well. Looks like here mobile has got my lowest gross profit %. Let's go ahead and take a look at mobile. Looks like it's all resulting in cell phones. Within the cell phones, you can click on that and get the breakdown of the full layers. If we're going into like TV and video, we have got, see the breakdown here. Television, I'm looking pretty good. Blu-ray and DVD players, not so much. So again, just a quick way to analyze, and these are all things that are completely whatever your hierarchy levels that you want to drill through are all things that you kind of set up. You'll notice here on the right-hand side we've got a pivot table options. We're going to play with that in a minute. But on the right here, if we look at central, I can see there's different sales reps that are applicable based on the different regions that were there and the sales associated with that. So that's just kind of real quick, just by clicking around. So the concept here is, you're going to have, we actually deliver these already with these different dashboard type views already connected to the data as part of the setup, is these actually be running and mapped right on top of your data as well. We can also remove these slicers, the filters, by just clicking the little X on top of the filter icon. And if we go ahead and just get rid of those. Okay. And we can go, let's just look at like the next tab as an example. Right, so here we're looking at just the trend for 2009. If we want to remove that filter on the year, we can actually see that trend be across different years. So now we've got the 3 years of data, and we can kind of see 2007, 8, and 9 and the activity associated with those from a sales, gross profit, or percentage perspective. And let's say we want to look at just one specific sales rep. Maybe I want to analyze and see how Jason Lee is doing. So we'll filter on Jason Lee, and now we're looking at just the information for Jason Lee and the breakdown. We've got some trend charts, some bar charts. Again, if you want to have a mix here, this is really intended to just be kind of a starting point. We kind of want to show you another flavor down here. We've got a pivot table, has the same breakdown as the rows as we saw before for the product group. However, the columns we've actually just broken down by year. So within 2007, 8, and 9, we've got sales, gross profit, and percent. If we want to actually see the breakdown within one of those, we can click on the year. It'll give us the breakdown within that year by quarter and give us the totals for that. Again, it's all just with the pivot tables. Now, the PowerPivot is, the difference really is that we're actually connecting a model, and you'll see this work directly to the data, and that's what's driving all this. So there's no really, it's all automated. There's not a manual process of, doing a bunch of lookups or copying data from one spreadsheet to another, or importing it, doing a data import, and then doing a bunch of work to get this. You refresh this, it'll retrieve the data from the system, and then you're ready to analyze and slice and dice. Okay. Let's go ahead and remove the filter on Jason Lee. You can see that reflect the elements there. Next, we're going to kind of take a look at, there's also, we have deliver a sales ad hoc tab. And this is where we find, sometimes you may be able to answer the question you're looking for with some predefined content that we deliver. Other times you may want to build something out custom there on your own, but it's off a specific module, so that's where this might be the starting point. So if I go ahead and click on the pivot table here, I'll go up to PowerPivot and choose the field list. So in essence, for this model, these are the objects that have been defined. So if we wanted to go ahead and look at maybe sales by region, I'm going to go ahead and grab region and just drag it to my row labels. We'll see that update our pivot table. And let's say within that region we want to get year-to-date sales for the current year, and I'm going to compare that to the prior year. Okay. So now we're looking at year-over-year sales broken down by region. What if within the region we want to see a breakdown by customer? Let's go ahead and grab our sold to customer name, drag that down below the region. And now within each region we can see the list of customers. What if we wanted to look at just the top 3 customers within each region? If I click on a customer, any one, right click on that, choose filter, and look at like top 10, and choose, let's say, 3 based on my current year-to-date sales, or I can choose prior year or any other objects as well. Okay, so now I'm looking at just truly my top 3 by each region. We want to go ahead and sort. So I've got my largest sales region at the top. I can grab the extended amount here for the current year. Right click on this and just sort largest to smallest. So now I can see West happens to be where I've got the most sales within the top 3. So this is real quick. And also we can do is, if we want to shrink this and just do collapse the entire field, right? Our chart will be collapsed, and as we drill through this pivot table here, we can actually see it expand on just the elements that we're drilling into. So right now we're looking at region, then a breakdown by customer. What if we want to see the products within that customer? All right, so we go in here, scroll up, grab like product group, and I'll just drag that below the customer. Now we can actually see the products within each customer. What if I want to look at not just the top 3 customers for each region, but overall? So if I go ahead and just remove the region from the pivot table, right now we're looking at just the top 3 customers, and we can actually sort, let's say, our data for each product group here as well. So if I just sort this, largest to smallest, now I can see within each customer of the top 3 the breakdown. So we can go ahead and play with this all day. Like I said, we actually have this model. If you're interested, we can send this in an Excel file, password protected, and you can kind of do a lot of this what if just to get the feel of it. So this is really kind of PowerPivot. Again, there's no real requirement. We'll kind of take the next step in a minute here of getting behind the scenes. But before that, we'll do that. I want to show you one other example here. I'm going to go ahead and open up like a sample income statement as well. So I'm going to go ahead and close this. I'll just close that and reopen Excel as well. Okay. So the income statement, again, we've come up with techniques on how to build. And one of the things that's a little unique about P&Ls or income statements and balance sheets is, in cash flow statements, they're very row-centric. So it's identifying and building the logic to make sure you get the summary roll-ups for things like revenue, gross profit, net income, income before operations, things like that. So we got some techniques on how to do it. I wouldn't suggest PowerPivot being the best tool to be able to deliver financial reports, but you can do it as you can see here. What's kind of nice is, again, it's very quick and easy and very dynamic. So if I wanted to pick a different year and different period, I can go ahead and do that real quick on the fly, and the data is just going to change very quickly. So going from one period to the next is very dynamic and very easy. And then you get the different summary levels. So this is maybe a consolidated P&L across the whole organization. However, if I wanted to look at just maybe government, I could select government, or maybe just corporate administration. I can see the summary for that. So I get this very high-level, different consolidated levels, very quick and easy. Remove the filter. Maybe I want to see a specific region. So the ability to slice and dice it by and filter it by different elements or different category codes, as you will, if that's how you're running in JDE. It's very quick and easy to do. So this is kind of a consolidated view where we've got the month-to-date, but actual budget and variance, and the percent, and then the same thing for year-to-date. Okay, we go ahead and look at the next tab here, income statement by segment. So sometimes people want to do a consolidating type report. So you might be having the same set of rows, but instead of getting different summary levels, you really want to just analyze and get a columnar type report where it's broken down by company or division or region or business segment, however you want to define that. So that's kind of what we've done here as another flavor. I'm going to go back here. That thing I wanted to show is that, what if we're looking at this and we're getting revenue and then costs and overheads? Well, we want to actually see that broken down by maybe not object account, but something else, like maybe business unit. So if I go ahead and select the field list here in PowerPivot, and that's how I want to go and grab our business unit and description, and I'll just drag that below the object account. And we'll go ahead and we'll remove the object account field. So now, real quickly, we're able to see a different flavor where, the rows are quickly interchangeable based on now with the cost of sales. I can see that broken down again by all the different business units as well. Okay. This is another flavor. So those are kind of two things. I just want to give you kind of a little bit of the look and feel. In this case, just want to point out as well, on the right-hand side, we've got a lot of the different dimensions, obviously for some of the category codes, things that are region or division or business segment. That's what you would actually have reflected there. That's part of the setup, is to get those named to your specifications. We also have things over here you can see for a P&L like month to date, year to date. So if I look at the year to date, pre-calculated objects for actual amount, budget amount, variance, current year, prior year. Same thing for quarter to date or month to date. And we also have even predefined for things like revenue. So you can do a lot of different types of key metric reporting on revenue and gross profit, net income, and things like that, or overhead expenses already predefined for you. You can just drag those in to your different pivot tables as a starting point. Okay, so let's go ahead and next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to take, let me go ahead and open up let's see. Okay. So we're going to take this sample, and this is kind of one of our, again, open accounts payable analysis type reports. We're going to actually show you how we could actually take this and then map to a new environment. So we're going to get away from Excel here for a second. For some of you that don't get exposed at the data level, this may be a little more technical. It's probably about as technical as we're going to get today. I'm going to switch over here in this case, but the same thing would apply. This is on SQL Server in this example. Pretty much the same process. If you run on DB2 or Oracle, not SQL Server, we could share a desktop and show you the exact same thing and run against the other data sets as well. First thing I want to do is go point out, so right now that report's pointing to JDE9. And in this JDE9 we've got a suite of views, database views. This is part of what our jumpstart entails, where we've got a lot of the naming conventions. So we'll point those out in a minute. So basically we've got this new data set on this called JD Demo. I look at the tables. You can see here listed the cryptic JD tables. Go down and look at like the F0006 as an example. And I look at the columns for that. So this is kind of just the raw data in its raw form. This is what you get and what most pristine data sets would look like. So what I'm going to do is, what we do as part of our setup is we provide all the scripts across all the modules that you want. And I'm going to go ahead and show you an example of running some of those. If I go ahead and click over here, here's in essence a file that includes several different views across multiple modules. Go ahead and I'm just going to execute that. Already completed. So at that moment, we basically just ran the view scripts as the out-of-box. Part of the setup is also going to be to make sure that if we need to add additional fields or remove certain fields or hide certain fields, just from and always improve performance, and that's part of the setup. Go over here and just hit refresh. So you saw how quickly that ran. Now all those view scripts are here available. So that same that business unit, that same example that we just pulled up a minute ago, difference there, this would be the columns with R. So we actually classify all the columns or fields within each of the tables with the DM, DT, or MS. DMs for like dimension type objects, DTs are for dates, and MS is for any type of measure, amount, or unit type thing. We've got the long names as well as the alias. So we keep all that. So for some people that always want to know what does this actually trail back to, that's part of our syntax of our views, is to provide both of those. We also go a step further in some of these as well. So if we look at like the accounts payable that we're going to go ahead and map here in a second, it's actually right on top of this table. And we can go ahead and select the top 1,000 rows here just to give you a flavor of the data. So these are the naming conventions. You'll notice in here we've got the address names. So we're not just grabbing the AP stuff. We're also within this specific view, we're going out there and grabbing the applicable business unit name, company name, and alpha name, any address information, things that we need to get from the supplier master. So this is where a lot of these, we call them data model views, and these actually start here with the DM, and that's what classifies those as the more complex type views. So it just gives you a quick flavor. So this is what the PowerPivot model that we're seeing here on the screen is connected to. So basically what we've just done is we went out there, we provide the view script, we ran the view script, now the pristine data set's got the views. If you're not familiar with database views, this is not a copy of the data. So it's not like this is a mini warehouse or anything like that. It's a pass-through. The view, in essence, is just a logical layer that sits on top of the physical files or tables within JDE, and we've just transformed those into more meaningful format. In some case, we're even doing some creative restructuring of the data for reporting sake and analysis sake. So in this case, how do I actually take this model? Because I've just opened it up and haven't seen really what's going on behind the scenes yet. When you have PowerPivot installed, if I click here on PowerPivot, I click on the PowerPivot window, this is going to take me to a behind-the-scenes layer within the spreadsheet. So this is where the modeling takes place. In this case, that same view we were just telling about is what we've pulled into this model. So the first step that we need to do, and you can notice here the data sources, so you can connect to, if I hit from other data sources, you can connect. This is where this is very powerful of a tool because it's not just a JDE only type tool. However, with preferred strategies, we've completely give you the jumpstart to make it work excellent with JDE specifically. But any other data source, SQL Server, Teradata, Oracle, Sybase, DB2, any OLEDB, ODBC compliant database. If you have even something on a spreadsheet, you can pull that in as an Excel file as a source. So a lot of functionality, a lot of flexibility here of connecting to a variety of different data sources. Again, we've already done this for JDE. So the part of the process we're going to do, if I click on Design and I click on Existing Connection, I want to take this existing connection that would be delivered and I want to map it to the new pristine database that we just ran the view scripts on. So I can click on the connection, click on Edit, and Build. And here's the same server, but I want to switch to a different database. In this case, I want to switch from JDE9 to JDE Demo. Now, again, if you have Active Directory, authentication set up, then I don't have to log in at all. Otherwise, you can specify a specific username and password if you want to set up some specific accounts for individuals or service accounts and whatnot. So I'm just going to use NT Integrated Security, test connection. Looks like it's successful. Choose OK. Hit Save. So at this moment, I've now just mapped this view to that new data set. Then what I can do is go in here and choose a refresh. At this point, it's actually going out there, pointing the new, it's already just retrieved all the data. So I've now just mapped this view to a new pristine JDE database. Okay. Once you do that, we can go ahead back to the Excel. And a lot of times what happens is, so there's that back end where we're refreshing the data model itself, and you can go ahead and, if you're running it via SharePoint, you can have that automatically refresh. We'll show you that in a couple minutes. Or otherwise, when you open this up, you might want to go back to that to refresh the data. And that's how you'll go out there, in essence, make the call to the data and retrieve it back, return it back to your model. But all the different tables and charts, sometimes you want to go here to the data and do a refresh all here as well, just to make sure that everything throughout all the different tabs and everything gets updated as well. So now pretty much that's done. Everything here is now updated and pointing to that new data source. If we go ahead and click around, we go ahead and select a company, get the breakdown within the company. Again, just analyzing AP, looking at what's just, maybe 91 to 120, right? So let's go ahead and what's the next step? So basically what we wanted to show was, again, everything you're seeing here, there's no requirement of SharePoint. But if you actually did want to see how this integrates with SharePoint, that's what we wanted to show you next. So you build the models, or you get the models, we load the models, map the models, and you can do everything here in Excel. To publish this to SharePoint, if I go ahead and do a file and do a save as, if I go ahead and just click up here and put in the SharePoint server name, okay, now I'm actually looking at the folder structure within SharePoint. So let's go ahead and just go to the PowerPivot gallery, and we'll just call this accounts payable demo report. Okay. So we can go ahead and go into this. We'll actually, when we get out there, we'll log into our Baker console. I just want to save something to that folder. So we'll just save this right to the gallery. If I hit save, in essence, I've just published this report to the SharePoint site. Okay. So now what we can do is go ahead and log in. Okay. If I go just to that PowerPivot gallery in SharePoint, you notice here's that report. Sometimes it might take a few seconds for it to fully upload. So in essence, now I'm looking at, this is over the web, so I'm in a browser. I'm not in necessarily Excel per se. And now, just like we said before, we click around here within SharePoint. Now, with the SharePoint, something that's very important, you have all these slicers and all these charts and pivot tables, and you can basically click around the slicers and have it trickle through your report. You can still drill down, just like before, through pivot tables, okay? But you can't do a lot of the other things that you would normally do in Excel, okay? So if you wanted to that, you can actually just go back here and choose Open in Excel, and that would be how you would then open it up in an engine to do that, okay? So we'll open some up here from SharePoint in just a minute. Before we do that, let's go ahead and go back. So let's go back to our gallery. I think I wanted to show, so if you have multiple tabs, multiple things, you can actually mouse over those, and whatever's on those different tabs will actually show up here, and you can click and write on that. I don't know if you noticed, but when I had that open, all the different tabs would also be available there that would have been in the document that was published out here anyways. So you go ahead and select this, and on the right-hand side, you'll see a Manage Data Refresh. And this would be where if you wanted to go in and enable the refresh, and this is where you could actually have some of these models where, okay, I want this to run on a daily basis or on some specific interval. I also want it to refresh as soon as possible. So you can kind of specify something on a daily, weekly, monthly, or just run at one time in the future or after business hours or a specific time. Then you need to choose, okay, what's the credentials I want to authenticate? I want to use whatever was defined by the administrator, or I want to use specific credentials that I specify here for the users. That's one way. And then the different sources. So in this case, we only had one source going at, this model is going to JDE. If you had other sources that were pulled into that PowerPivot model as well, you could actually have those refresh the data from there as well. So once you're done with choosing those options, hit OK. In essence, and now you've got that set up to either refresh right away or so that's how the scheduling works. You can kind of get those periodic refreshes of the data as well. So now if we go in and look at just give you a quick flavor, like the sales model, we published that earlier. So just those same type of things there. Those are all available. Let me go back. Let's go ahead and take a look. For instance, let's say we want to then, from here, build a report. And I don't want to, let me just close out of my Excel so we can show you if you want to open something up from SharePoint, how we do that. Okay. So I'm going to navigate, let's say, to like procurement as an example. One of the things we've tried to do with a lot of our models is keep a lot of standardization and consistency about how we're laying things out, the techniques we're using, and how we make them very dynamic but also flexible and interchangeable based on different customer environments. So here's the purchasing example. We could pull that up. But let's say I just want to build starting from scratch. I go into this ad hoc templates. Here's what we've got, in essence, the purchasing, where it's really kind of more that blank canvas that we showed you as one of the tabs in the sales model at the very beginning of the demo. So we'll go ahead and open this up. And then we can go ahead and just choose Open in Excel. And we'll go ahead and edit that. Go ahead and enable editing. So now for me to then start working with that pivot tables and the different charts and everything to build stuff out in Excel, that's still where you're going to do a lot of that legwork here with the PowerPivot. We'll go ahead and just select the pivot table down below, and let's say we want to see our supplier. So I'll just grab the supplier address name, and maybe we want to see the open amount by supplier. So in this case, we'll go up here to amount open. Drag that in. Here's our, let's go ahead and sort this largest to smallest. So now we've got, in essence, here's our total suppliers with the most amount. Let's say we want to see that broken down by company. Just go up and grab, company and name. Drag that above our address. And now within each company, we can see the breakdown as well. Okay. Okay, so this just kind of gives you a real quick flavor. Now, don't want to get too redundant based on things that we've already shown, but like I said, we cover 14 different JDE modules, and I'd be happy to kind of go through those with you. If you're interested, just let us know. Okay, so for the sake of time, I'm going to go ahead and show the last thing, which is kind of the utility that part of our maintenance program, we provide access to this as well. So in this case, if I wanted to go in, we provide you access to this. If I go and do like looking at a specific table, like the F0006, right? So on this table inquiry, I can choose a table, and then all the different fields within that table, the metadata per se, short names, long names. You can go ahead and sort these alphabetical or do some searches. We'll do that in a second. So here's all the fields. Here's all the indexes that come with that out of box from JDE. And even like a lot of these user-defined codes, this is where it's nice to get the specific product and system code values. Sometimes those are a little more difficult to get. And if I go to the field list, so sometimes you might not know a specific table and just see what the values are within a table or the elements within a table, but you know a specific field. So let's say I know I want to find the AN01 field. Right? If I choose AN01 and hit enter, in essence, this will actually show me these are all the different tables in JDE that have an AN01 field in it. So this kind of helps you sometimes find fields, but this is still too good. I know it's in a balance file. So if I just do like an asterisk balances, then anything that has balances in it will actually now be in that list. I want to sort this maybe by some other order, maybe again by the table, something like that, in reverse order. You can do that as well. Okay, so this is just another tool. It kind of helps mine that out of box the schema of JDE. There's also a Julian date conversion. So let's say, what's today's date? February 28th. What does that convert to? Right, 113059, or Julian to calendar. If I had, what was it, 113059, and convert that, here's in essence it's the same day. So again, that was a utility. So last thing I wanted to do was just kind of come back, and then we'll tackle questions here in just a minute. So again, what are the prerequisites? Excel 2010, 2013. What we really love about this solution is that you're really working with, 2010 it's a free plugin. With 2013 it's part of Excel. So using the kind of the native access of Excel, but already connected to JD Edwards, is something that's extremely powerful. So just go to www.powerpivot.com. We have a video, like I said. Feel free to reach out to us. We can kind of help you. If you have any issues getting that downloaded and installed, we'd be happy to help. And then our jumpstart for JD Edwards, really there's the two elements: install and configure our database views. You saw how quickly we ran that across a variety of different modules. But part of the next step, really what we didn't show today, was getting into those views, and then we want to basically fine-tune those to make sure that we're definitely getting everything to meet the requirements across the different modules that you're trying to implement. And then it's our PowerPivot model. So you saw we opened up the AP model, went to the back end, mapped to the different source. Same thing there. There'll also be things, well, I need to add additional fields to the model. So sometimes we already have them in the views but not in the model. So we just basically add those fields to the model. Sometimes we have to add it to both, or we might sometimes want to even remove fields from the model or the views, just so we're getting back to really just the data that really makes sense for your type of analysis.